I'm Russian and I would like to know how do you feel about Russians? So, I've always been tormented by this question. I have been studying English about 7 years and I'm still don't know English excellent, so I'm truly sorry if you don't understand what I'm writing about. I'm always wanted to visit America, but I couldn't do it now due the war and I always wanted to chat with Americans, but there will definitely be someone who would call me a Russian pig. Guys, Russians are not that bad. In my opinion, nations should not call names and quarrel with each other because of the choice of politicians. I would be glad if I could talk to someone and improve my English level. P.S. We have been doing present simple for the 8th year at school. What sucks? Russian people as a whole. I have no problem with it all. In fact, I'm sure like most people, the majority of you are a fine group. Your government and those that believe and agree with them can truly get fucked. Putin is a monster. Always has been and no doubt always will be. Neither Russian nor American people are actually represented by their respective governments. Most citizens of both countries are probably just regular people. Back when I used to frequent chat rooms, I used to really enjoy getting to know people from other countries. A good rule for inexperienced Americans traveling abroad who get lost or run into trouble: sober Russians, plus Canadians and Australians period, are always safe to ask for help and be around. They generally know the lay of wherever you're at, and are decent and kind. Also, a Russian man will stare down and walk down any aggressors who might be troubling scared tourists. I've beheld it twice in real life while in Europe and the Middle East, and it's fucking glorious. I've always had great relations with Russians, and have enjoyed hanging out with them when abroad. Perfectly fine with most Russians. Like every other country, it's the greedy, uncaring, narcissistic and out-of-touch leaders that I absolutely despise and hate. My sister's boyfriend is a Russian chap. One of the nicest guys I know. I have absolutely no problem with Russians. I do, however, despise your government. Neither I nor any other Americans I personally know hold negative views of Russian people. Geopolitics do not affect my view of ethnic peoples. Generally speaking, my mother is Kazakh. I don't hate Russian people. There's no need to hate them, just because Putin is making choices. I grew up in the Eastern Orthodox Church because my family converted. I know enough actual Russians to know that they are generally kind, decent folks. Your English is coming along well. Keep using it. Do not be deterred. I'm sure a majority of the people are fine. The government is a trash heap. Honestly, violent, stuck in the past, sexist, and racist, but I recognize your government has a lot to do with this view I have. I'm working on it. All the Russians I've ever met here in the US have been great. But most were professionals who left Russia for a reason. Russia has always felt like wasted potential in country form. Bad people keep taking it over. Every time things seem to be getting better, it takes a turn for the worse. In my opinion, we shouldn't generalize by saying, for example, all Russian people are bad. Each country has bad people. But people tend to only talk about the minority, the bad ones. I'm sure there are a lot of good Russians. I don't know you, but I think you are a good guy also. My wife's parents are Russian. My wife was born in Germany. The stories that my wife's grandmother told me about being taken to Kazakhstan as a child and was made to work in a camp will stay with me for the rest of my life. I will forever love and respect that woman. UK person here. I have no problem with Russians. Cool people and cool culture. Plenty of nice people and some assholes like everywhere else. Not a fan of the anti-gay stuff from the government. Hello, first I would like to say that your English is not bad at all. Second, I would never hold you accountable for the actions of politicians. As an American, I can understand not identifying with the actions of a leader. I think Russia is a very unique place, rich in art, literature, architecture, tradition, and history, and much more. I find that as far as common people go, we have far more in common than we might realize. You can feel free to ask me anything you would like to know about American culture, and I will do my best to answer. All people should be judged individually. It's a flaw that when humans hate, they extend it to a whole group of related people. So as long as you as a Russian don't want people to be killed or uprooted, I don't want harm to come to you. I like you just as much as a stranger from my own country, as long as you don't support people like Putin. The only Russians I have disliked were on a vacation, and I have no idea why, but they were rude to me and my family. Indians are very fond of Russians. A couple of weeks ago I was in Goa and the menus in bars and café had Russian translations as well. 'Cause of high tourism from Russia. Politicians and the citizens that reside in a country are different. Personally, I feel like you would get a mixed response. I personally would have no problem with you, and I'm sure many others would not. The Russians I know are nice people. Very nice, in fact. Your fascist government makes their life hard on the other hand. I'm Jamaican and I think Russian people are very cool. Russia is very multicultural and I'd love to visit Russia one day and experience the many cultures. Emo. It doesn't matter where you were born, only how you live your life. Nice people are everywhere. So are bad ones. The Russians I've met? Super nice. The women, super hot. We won't talk politics though. About Russians, I don't have any feelings one way or the other. I think governments worldwide have been fucking the people unchecked for too long, however. I don't hate Russians, I hate Putin. Depends on the Russian. Man shrugging. American, here it's your government we do not like. I have no problem with Russian people but think your government is evil. The people are just trying to live their lives the best they can in this shitty world. The government in general and Putin specifically can go fillet a rusty railway spike. In all honesty, Russians in computer games, if I had the option to isolate them, I would. Russians as tourists in my country, absolutely awful. I hate them. Russians at work, smart and nice guys. Always positive and helpful. Quite brilliant. Just like everyone else, I like the people, not their governments. Worked with a lot of Russians when I was catering in NYC. All super nice guys. In my experience, the Russian women I've met are beyond warm and kind. Russian men, on the other hand, have a lot of machismo that just totally turns me off from wanting to get to know them more. But overall, I'd say they are just like people from anywhere else. Some are great, some are assholes. My parents came from Belarus. I speak Russian and I was raised with mixed Russian and Israeli values. I love Russian people. They're great. It's the government that I'm not a fan of. Also, most of the food isn't that tasty. Besides pilmeni, that shit is the bomb. As an American, I have no issue at all with the Russian people. I met a few Russians in Dubai and they were lovely people. Now the government, that's a different story. Here in Canada, there is a lot of support for Ukraine, but there's not much anti-Russian rhetoric that I'm aware of. I know that I do hear positive talk about the Russian people, not related to the war. I hear it from dating experts and coaches referring to the mentality of the men and women in Russia. The North American dating relationship scene is falling apart. Emo. I'm Canadian and have known lots of lovely Russians, no problem at all for me personally. The Russian people are fine, their government on the other hand, not so much.